So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Dustin, Brandon, and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
This is the Heel to the Face podcast for another week. We're coming off the big NXT announcement. We're on our road to Clash of Champions. But let's start the show, as always, with making sure you know who's to my right. That is Brandon the Icebreaker Clements. You can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21. Myself at KRockJared on Twitter and Instagram. And most importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face. That's where you get the links for our shows on both podcast and YouTube formats. A busy week of wrestling. Where do you want to even start with this week's edition, Brandon? You know, I'll actually pick. We're going to start because I read this most recently. It is the most up-to-date news, and it is something that I've kind of brought up on this show for a little bit now. If you watch our show, maybe not unique to our show, probably brought up on other shows, but I always would talk about, obviously, AEW talent being worked elsewhere. It is being reported that it looks like Jon Moxley might have some sort of elbow injury and an infection that came from his time when he was in Japan. Recently, he became the IWGP United States champion when he was over in Japan. He just wrestled this past Sunday. I didn't make it to Scranton, Pennsylvania, but either way, Moxley's got a big match under the AEW banner in just a few weeks for All Out, Saturday, August 31st. That is about 10 days from now at the Sears Center in Chicago. What do you make of this elbow injury, and what do you make of the theory of always of these people working while under the AEW contract?
I mean, here's my thing. I mean, obviously, John, he has the right contract in place where he can do AEW, he can do New Japan.
Is there anyone in AEW who doesn't have that contract in place? I mean, I've seen Jericho do it. I have seen anybody not do it.
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's great that AEW allows these superstars to do that because, as you know, WWE, and actually, speaking of WWE, I was reading an interesting report about Dolph Ziggler, and the report was that he's done after, I think he's done with WWE. I read a report that...
Did you read this report in January that he's not going to be in the Royal Rumble that he's keeping on his comedy career?
No, it's...
We've heard this before.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing I read was, shortly after SummerSlam, I guess him and Vince had supposedly like a gentleman's agreement. And Dolph was, talked to Vince backstage support, and this is reported, reportedly, I think it was maybe Meltzer maybe reported it. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but I was reading it, and they pretty much said, Vince pretty much said to Dolph, I'm not going to let you go out of your contract early, like we kind of had a handshake agreement on. And he pretty much is telling, this is what I found out. Dolph is actually going to be sitting home and getting a paycheck from Vince. He said, I'd rather keep you, on the shelf and not, I don't want you working for AEW pretty much. So, I mean, kind of bringing it back full circle, with Moxley, it's tough because, guys like Ziggler they can't do anything. They can't even do, they can't do any, indie shows. I mean, he could do comedy stuff, which is great for him because it has nothing to do with wrestling. But I like the fact that AEW allows this. It's a non-issue to me. Unfortunately, injuries do happen. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think it's a non-issue.
Injuries do happen. That's why I think this is such a big deal that these people are competing now. I have a feeling that this is all going to come to an end once the TV deal starts on October the 4th.
I don't think so.
You think they're still going to be continuing to work elsewhere even while they're under the AEW banner?
Yes, I think there's terms in the contract is what I've read, where like Moxley cannot wrestle for Japan in the United States. So that means he can wrestle for Japan if I read it correctly, in Toronto, which is not United States, obviously. So there's these different things in the contract from what I was reading, especially with Moxie's deal, that are, they're saying that he can work New Japan, on certain events, on certain continents kind of thing. Like it's very fine, it's very detailed, so to speak. So, I think they have it laid out where they already had the idea of the TV plan in place. So they probably have it like he can only work New Japan, on X day, you know, whatever it could be. They haven't figured it out. There's no way that they didn't have this figured out, because obviously they're going to be airing it on Wednesdays, and there's no way they're going to have these guys working AEW and New Japan. They're not going to have them, oh, let's have you work a Tuesday in Japan and have you fly back in time for AEW tapings on Wednesday. I think it might be more of a, maybe they'll say you can work, you know, Fridays or, you know, something, because that's a long trip from stateside to Japan. That's not a short trip. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. I don't see it being something that's going to be nixed. I would say it'll be scaled back a lot, especially with the TV deal, but I don't think it's going to be totally nixed. I don't.
Now, with AEW, they've officially announced that they will add 2 more shows. So the month of October is full. They're going to start out at the Washington Capitals, aka Washington Wizards Arena, the Capital One Arena, for their big show, about 15,000 plus. Then they're going to scale it back for Boston, Philly, Pittsburgh. They're going to the University of Pittsburgh and the Peterson Event Center for a show, not downtown, but the good 9,000 seat arena, which some might say is the better arena in town when it comes to the atmosphere, especially when it's full. And then Charleston, West Virginia, kind of getting away from the bigger, well-known cities. Charleston, West Virginia, rounding out their first full month of television on TNT. Very interested in that. But speaking of TV and speaking of people trying to, whether they're going to AEW or WWE, apparently CAA, which is the agency that both represents CM Punk and the WWE, has reached out to Fox to see if CM Punk wants to host a WWE-related talk show on Tuesday nights on FS1.
Interesting.
So it'd be talking about WWE. He wouldn't be getting a paycheck from World Wrestling Entertainment exactly. He'd be getting it paid from Fox. But, I mean, obviously he'd be talking about WWE, and it would be very interesting because of the fact that he's not under the WWE banner. He's being paid by Fox. We all know how CM Punk is. We all knew how he was when he was paid by WWE and how he still had the infamous pipe bomb promo. So I think it would be very interesting to let CM Punk on television talking about WWE while not necessarily having to get his paycheck from WWE.
So that essentially means he can kind of say what he wants then, right?
He can kind of say what he wants.
Within reason. Obviously, Fox is probably going to say, all right, Punk, you got to, you know, let's kind of bring it back a little bit. But I think he's gonna. I think if this actually all, you know, comes to fruition, I think it'll be great for ratings. I will watch that show in a heartbeat because, you know, CM Punk has been missed in the wrestling world for, you know, long enough. It's been how many years now? It's been 5.
It was before WrestleMania 30 because his last WrestleMania was WrestleMania 29. I didn't know when I went to MetLife Stadium I was watching his last WrestleMania, but that was his last foray in professional wrestling, other than that one-off appearance that he made at an indie wrestling show last year.
I'm not even counting that, honestly.
But yeah, since he was in WWE, it was about January, early February before WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. So essentially, he has never wrestled under the network era in WWE.
That's crazy.
So yeah, over 5 years.
That's crazy. You know what? I hope this works. I hope they do it, and where he gets a check from Fox, talks about WWE. I think that would be interesting. Now, speaking of talk programs, I was just surfing the web before the show, and it looks like WWE is creating a podcast network.
It's kind of ironic because we're talking about CM Punk not really having a leash if he was going to be on FS1 talking WWE. WWE is creating a podcast network where it seems like it wouldn't necessarily be of interest because you would assume that a lot of these people are going to have a very strong leash. I'm not paid by WWE. I can say whatever I want. Most people can say whatever they want in the podcast world. But unfortunately, obviously, if WWE has some sort of podcast format, you wonder what kind of leash they're going to have. It's been announced that Endeavor's Audio, which is the first entertainment studio in WWE, a global media and entertainment company, launched the WWE Podcast Network with superstar-focused series. I don't know. Will that be like Randy Orton 365, like what we see on the? Is that what we're going to see?
I mean, what I've read was, and just reading it here, it's you know, Endeavor Streaming provides the back-end technology for the WWE Network. Also, former WWE superstars Nikki and Brie Bella host the Bella's podcast on Endeavor Audio. So I'm guessing it could. I wonder here. Let me not to jump too far off of it, but what about like Ryder and Hawkins? Will they go there now?
I mean,
that's
if the money's good and the partnership's good. I kind of wonder, is this going to be a lot of WWE 24 programming, maybe just the audio version? Now, I don't know if you're like me and you drive around at 3 o'clock in the morning ever, but sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, when you don't have the actual live jocks on sports radio, ESPN Radio kind of has aired their shows. just the audio format. I want to say E60, for example. E60 at 3 o'clock in the morning on ESPN Radio is just airing the audio format without the visuals. It's kind of similar to what I'm thinking what they might do with WWE 24/7, WWE 365, kind of just air essentially those network programs, just the audio of it, so you can drive around and listen to WWE.
And they'll probably make it free too, free audio version. Because I mean, a lot of places do that. Where like if you want to watch the video side of it, you have to pay for it. But if you want to listen to just the audio, you'll probably get it for free. I mean, unless they, what they could
unless
do,
they tie it in somehow with
the network.
WWE. Yes,
yeah, they could do it with the WWE Network, which would be kind of cool. Speaking of programming, what are your thoughts on the rumor mill of SmackDown going to 3 hours?
That would be awful because speaking of programming, I mean, obviously the big announcement, not necessarily SmackDown going 3 hours, is NXT jumping to the USA Network in early September, which will actually be on the USA Network prior to SmackDown going over to Fox. So for the month of September, because it's going to be September 4th, which is in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
NXT is moving to 2 hours, and they're going to be on the USA Network, which will mean that USA will have 2 hours of programming at least Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night for the entire month of September.
Great.
That's essentially why I'd imagine they're not jumping to Tuesdays, because of the fact that they're doing it while SmackDown's still on Tuesday. But obviously there's the more obvious reason why they're doing it on Wednesday, to compete with AEW. Young Bucks actually sent out a tweet earlier this week that says that they're not scared of this NXT move into the USA Network. But you talk about SmackDown becoming 3 hours. I think that's not the best, because of the fact that I think NXT moving to 2 hours might be a little of a disservice to NXT. And my question is, how far in advance are these NXT? Because if you are putting it on Wednesday night and you are trying to compete with AEW, probably more important than the length of time is how far in advance are you taping this? Because if it's not live, then you might as well just put it on Saturday mornings or Tuesday at 2 a.m. If it's not live,
it's going to be leaked out.
Yeah. If it's going to be the same format it is now, then you're not really essentially competing with AEW.
Yeah, because it's a live format versus a tape format.
Yeah, essentially the Street Profits, who are currently not the NXT Tag Champs anymore, despite the fact that they might be on Monday Night Raw as the NXT Tag Champs. And, you have Johnny Gargano challenging people on NXT, saying that he's sticking with NXT and he's not jumping ship just yet. Things that obviously haven't aired on TV yet. Because you have the Street Profits showing up on Monday Night Raw with the tag belts, while they're currently not the tag belts. We've seen this before with Tommaso Ciampa and Gargano as champions when they're not champions. But
remember the what was it? And it was TNA, wasn't it? EC3, like something about the title we were talking about.
Austin Aries was the champion of the 4-sided New Impact Wrestling before they've got rid of the 6-sided wrestling, meaning these were episodes that they filmed in December but weren't going to actually air until February. So Austin Aries is the Impact champion of a 4-sided ring, but if you tune on Impact Wrestling, it was currently a 6-sided ring with EC3 as your current champion.
Yeah, it was.
And Austin Aries not on the program at all.
Yeah, to me, you have to do NXT live. You have to. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how that logistically is going to work. But if you want to compete with AEW, you have to make it live. You can't just in the day and age when you have social media, it's going to get leaked, and guess what? People are going to be like, "Oh, I already got the spoilers, but I don't need to watch the show."
Yeah, I mean, this would be very similar to why the reason that Monday Night Raw is live. Remember, Monday Night Raw was only live about every other week. They would tape Monday Night Raw live one week, then the following week it would be taped on a Tuesday to air on the following week.
Yep.
But it was thanks to the competition in the Monday Night Wars and Tony Schiavone reminding us all that Mick Foley was going to win the championship tonight that changed that entire format. Is why Monday Night Raw has never been pre-taped, other than the exceptions of Christmas and stuff. But it's the reason why wrestling is live currently, because of things just like that.
Here's what they should do across the board. They should do Raw should be 2 hours, SmackDown should be 2 hours, and NXT should be 2 hours. That is it.
See, I don't know if I could make Raw 2 hours and NXT 2 hours, or keep Raw 3 hours and NXT 1 hour. I don't know which one I'd pick, because NXT being 1 hour, that's...
Here's what I argue, though. Here's my argument to that. So when you have these 3 hour shows of, guys that aren't getting their dues, like a Tyler Breeze, maybe, for example, guys like that, when you compact things and you need more talent to go down to NXT to fill an hour, a guy like Tyler Breeze, who's getting no airtime on Raw or SmackDown, could be getting some airtime on NXT. That's the way I look at it, because it's going to be more concise. You're going to see less 30-minute promos that we don't need to hear people talking. Just get in the ring, do the action like NXT does. So guys like, I mean, even Chad Gable would be a guy that would be great in NXT again. I mean, I know he's got sort of this thing going on right now. I don't know if you saw the little backstage segment this week where when Benjamin
yes.
put the sign up, you must be at least this tall. That was great. So like guys like that would be perfect because you have the 2 hours on each program, you already know which stars are going to be on it. So like a lot of these people are just sitting backstage. You just see them backstage. They're not doing anything. They're just kind of like when the reunion happened. They're like, in the background, just sitting there eating their cake, so to speak. They're not really doing anything, but they got on TV. In this case, you're bringing some superstars that you're demoting them in a way. Like you see it in baseball all the time. You get a guy who's been old for the century on the major league roster. You know what? We're going to send him down to AAA. Hopefully, he retools it and comes back up. So you kind of it's not like a repackage, but maybe like a Tyler Breeze. Like he's done. That's the perfect example because he's done great in NXT again on a second run. But bring somebody that maybe hasn't gotten enough steam on the main roster, you flip them over to NXT. I mean, that's why I think the 2 hour thing would work, especially on the NXT side.
Well, to be honest with you, and this might be a reason why it necessarily doesn't have to be live, I don't necessarily think that NXT is essentially trying to be competition for AEW. Yes, it looks on the surface like it's trying to be competition because NXT is probably the closest thing in the WWE catalog to AEW when it comes to the same kind of audience. But WWE, maybe you're just thinking the fact that they're just trying to get a few eyeballs off of AEW. Maybe not be competing with them, beating them in the ratings. But here's the thing. AEW, when it comes to WWE, needs all hands on deck, needs the best rating that they can get if they want to compete with WWE. So by WWE throwing NXT on Wednesday night and maybe just stealing 25% of the audience, if you steal 25% of the audience, that essentially... I feel if you're in WWE terms, that's still enough. You don't need to necessarily put them out of business. You don't need to beat them week in and week out because you're not putting Raw against AEW. You're not putting SmackDown against AEW. You're putting this other program against it to essentially just say...
It's the same niche audience, though.
It is the same audience. It is. You're right. If you put Raw against AEW, that might be kind of, embarrassing, but it might hurt the Raw brand because of the fact that a lot of people go to WrestleMania, but that's because AEW's never held a show against WrestleMania. And I figure WrestleMania or WWE is still going to win out, but either way,
WrestleMania.
WWE might find out real quick if they throw one of their stomping ground pay-per-views against AEW, just where exactly WWE stands. They don't necessarily want to find that out. They want to keep in their safe world. NXT is more of the audience that AEW is going for. And to me personally, I definitely think they need to make sure, not necessarily live, but within reason, things can't be taped. If they go live, maybe competition right there. But if they don't go live, regardless, don't even be on television if you're going to be 3-4 weeks backed up.
Yeah, to me that's awful with obviously with social media once again. So you really have to make sure if you're doing it, you're recording it, and maybe you have people sign those what do you call them, those like the gag order kind of thing. If they're in the audience, you can't tweet about it or you can get legally in trouble because they have done that for shows like that before where I've talked to people that have like they were doing movies and you could do a gag order. I'm like so tell me about it. Like you have to wait. I can't say much. So you could
do that. I mean, they do that for game shows. I've been on a few game shows myself, and I know that they can take your phones away from you. Yeah. You can literally just have your phone taken away from you if you attend an NXT taping, which is kind of one of those things that might not necessarily be the best because most people love going to wrestling shows because they tweet that they're there, they Instagram that they're there, they Facebook that they're there, and you know what I mean? So with NXT, that might not be that's the reason a lot of people go to sporting events.
Yeah, they want
to take pictures.
Taking pictures, or like if a wrestler like comes near you, you can like take a quick selfie maybe. I get that. Honestly, NXT should be live. I mean, that's at the end of the day. I don't know if they're directly
there's really no reason not to be live because they film from the same place every week anyways.
So and here's the thing. The reason why I feel like they record it live is why would you have an audience come in just for an hour? You know what I mean? Like, I get, that's why they tape
2 hours might indicate that they're going to be live because there'd really be no reason because they do film on Wednesdays regardless.
And you can still have dark matches before.
Yes. So they've already been filming on Wednesdays regardless. So 2 hours might indicate that they are indeed going to be live because of the fact that what would be the point of not being live? What would be the point of taping ahead of time?
And here's the thing.
If you're going to be taping on Wednesdays anyways, you might as well just tape that week's show.
The start time is 7:30 and then you go live at 8. So you have a dark match or two dark matches between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. It's going to be like
what you would if you went to an NXT house show.
Yeah, or you go to or you go to a WWE show. Yeah, because I've been to Raw and Buffalo and we're watching matches that are definitely not on Raw. They're
Well, they might be
advertising
on a main event or one of the other programs there.
And I remember years ago when I
Saturday
was
Morning Slam.
Yeah, you could. Going back in time, I remember Bray Wyatt's first time in Syracuse. Like he was in a dark match. I remember this very vividly, and I'm sitting next to my dad because we were at the event. And I'm like, that guy is going to be really good.
Well, I remember seeing Kofi Kingston in a dark match. Literally, I don't want to say it was his first time on WWE television. He's probably doing a few dark matches, but they were airing his vignettes to be on ECW because he was making his debut on ECW. It was either ECW or SmackDown. I want to say he was making his debut on ECW.
I think it was ECW.
But before SmackDown hit the air, there was a Kofi Kingston match before, and then during SmackDown, you saw his vignettes, or on ECW, you saw his vignettes that he was making his debut in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, but you get to see him. The live audience get to see it. A good glimpse first. Yeah.
The current world champion. Speaking of, we're moving on to King of the Ring, a former King of the Ring, Kurt Angle. I don't really know why he's in the talk of Brock Lesnar, but speaking on behalf of Brock Lesnar, that he might return to MMA to challenge Jon Bones Jones. Jon Bones Jones, the Endicott, Southern Tier, New York native, has said that he'd pretty much embarrass Brock Lesnar, sending that kind of stuff out there.
Well,
do you see Brock Lesnar coming out of MMA retirement to face Jon Bones Jones in this much anticipated? We've been waiting years for this match, and what would happen? Because Kurt Angle says Brock Lesnar would defeat Jon Bones Jones.
Kurt Angle, you need to go. You need to take a seat and just not speak because
Kurt Angle is the MMA Paul Heyman for Brock Lesnar.
I guess so. Because here's the fact. The fact of the matter is, Brock Lesnar goes to the octagon to face Bones Jones. Bones Jones kicks your teeth in. Simple as that. Brock Lesnar, the only way he would even have a chance is if he got him on the ground, but Bones can still go on the ground and do some things. So, Kurt Angle, I know you love your boy Brock, but guess what? If he steps in the octagon with the greatest fighter of all time, Bones is going to destroy him 110%.
So, moving on to this week's edition of programming, let's just skip right to the King of the Ring matches. What has been your take so far? Half of the field for the second round has been determined. We're still yet to see Ali and Buddy Murphy, Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. They teased it on SmackDown, but that will be next week on SmackDown. And on the Raw side, Ricochet, Drew McIntyre, Miz, and Baron Corbin. But the matches we've already seen. Elias moving on to the second round, defeated Kevin Owens. So there kind of went the whole Kevin Owens making it to the finals, getting screwed by Shane McMahon later on.
He got
screwed right away.
Yep.
Andrade defeated Apollo Crews. That seemed like an obvious. I just don't see Apollo. I would feel at this. I love Apollo Crews. It's a great stepping stone, but at the same time, you still have to have someone a little more established to win it.
Andrade is going to be a finalist. I think he's going to be there at the end.
Samoa Joe and Cedric Alexander both moved on from Raw as well.
You know what? Like the more I watch this, there's 2 names to look out for. As I've been watching it and watching how the storylines have developed. Cedric Alexander's a real name I think he's got a great chance to win it. Another name, Buddy Murphy. By the way, Buddy Murphy the last 2 weeks, great performances. He's done a hell of a job. He beats Daniel Bryan on SmackDown this week.
Yeah.
That was awesome. The fans loved it. And I will tell you this right now. Great job to our the fellow internet wrestling community, because if his photo was not, if people weren't like, oh, Buddy Murphy's in the screenshot of Roman Reigns, reports are Buddy Murphy wasn't even in the plans at all until people were like sending stuff to WWE on Twitter and saying, hey, Buddy Murphy was there. Isn't it him? Is it him? So Buddy Murphy wasn't part of the plans originally. So great job by the wrestling community here on the internet.
Kind of doing it's the right place, the right time.
Exactly.
Ali's still waiting for his big moment. Obviously, we saw Kofi Kingston with a big moment, and then obviously Buddy Murphy with a big moment as well. But speaking of Roman Reigns, what do you make of this? SmackDown went off the air. The final WWE programming of this week went off the air with Roman Reigns. Apparently, Rowan and Daniel Bryan revealed who was responsible, and they took the cover off the man. He was just wearing a blanket, if you will, and they revealed it to Roman Reigns. And the puzzled look on Roman Reigns is the same as puzzled look on my face. I do not know who it is. If you do not know or you haven't seen it, it literally just looked like Rowan's father. It was an older man with a big, long Rowan beard, shaved head, looked like he might be in a motorcycle gang.
Yeah.
Looked like he was not wanting to be there. Like he didn't look like he was ready to fight Roman Reigns or anything like that. But everybody just looked at each other, and Raw or SmackDown went off the air this week. So what do you make of Rowan's father? Is that who we're looking at here?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. It's obviously early too early to tell at this point. The returns are a little early. At first glance, I think it's awful. I'm not very happy about this. You're building this whole thing up about Roman Reigns' attacker. and it's supposedly some old guy who could be Rowan's father. I mean, I would have liked it more if it was something like a Samoa Joe or a Sami Zayn, something like that. But like the way it's set up right now, Rowan's dad. Yeah. I don't get it. To me, I mean, the early returns, I'm not really thrilled about. But let's see how it looks the next week or two, and maybe I'll come back and say, yeah, that was cool. But at this point, I don't think so far it's not a good look. I don't like the way it's been sold to us right now.
So Sami Zayn lost his King of the Ring match this week. You see him trying to team up a little bit with Shinsuke Nakamura. Do you see that as a positive for Sami Zayn at all? I mean, I guess it's better than doing nothing. He admitted that he's been on quite the losing streak lately.
Yeah, I mean,
he's trying to ride the coattails of Shinsuke.
I think it's great for Shinsuke, not good for Sami, because Shinsuke, obviously with the language and everything, he's not really that strong on the mic English-wise. So having a great talker like Sami Zayn to talk for him, I think is cool. I think it's going to be. It's weird though, because Sami Zayn's kind of like his Paul Heyman now, which is kind of weird. So it's kind of like his hype man. So it's good for Shinsuke, but I think for Sami Zayn, it's not good because this means he's not getting in the ring at this. I mean, early returns, of course, we won't know for sure until we see it, kind of develop a little bit more. But early returns are saying, hey, what is he like? The new mic, the new the microphone for Shinsuke, the manager. I don't know, the mouthpiece. It's going to be interesting. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
It's an interesting dynamic. I mean, with Sami Zayn losing, at least they're acknowledging that he's losing. They're not doing the things that they've done with people in the past where they just try to build him up as heels, but then they keep losing, so they don't have any credibility. So there is that, but either way, it is an interesting dynamic. It is a partnership that I wasn't expecting necessarily.
No.
I'm willing to see how things go out with Sami Zayn and Shinsuke. I'm not expecting too much from it, though.
No, and actually, I wanted to also touch base on the quick segment with Rey Mysterio. What did you make of that, where he was like about to retire, and then his son Dominic comes to say today, where do you think this goes?
Do we see Dominic ever coming into a WWE ring? I mean, he's of legal age now to do that. Do you see him teaming up with his father, doing anything in that sense?
I hope so. That'd be kind of cool. I mean, he has been, I guess, from what Ray has said before, is he's already been training Dominic. Mm-hmm. So Dominic's already learning some of the lucha style and everything. So he's young. It's
really bad. Rey Mysterio is one of these people. Rey Mysterio is a lot like these NXT people that we really long for them for so long. And I'm sorry, but how long would it take for CM Punk to have the same thing? You long for them for so long. They make their big Royal Rumble returns or their big out of the nowhere returns, and they're like, oh my God, this person's back. And then before too long, you go, who cares? Like, I mean, that was kind of Rey Mysterio when he was back on the scene again in WWE. You're like, Rey Mysterio's back. This is awesome, and then next thing you know,
it's just kind of. Unfortunately,
remember Kevin Nash's many returns to WWE in like 2011. He's coming back, interfering with Triple H and CM Punk. It's cool to see him at the Royal Rumble, but that's pretty much as far as it goes with a lot of these guys. And I think that's maybe what you should focus on when you have these big Royal Rumble returns. Maybe not bring them back fully, just bring them back that far.
Bring them back and bring them.
They have like the Royal Rumble return and then go
cool
back
surprise. The cool surprise.
Yeah, because Rey Mysterio is showing that him being back full time, the luster does wear off.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Stone Cold in one more match.
Well,
I don't think it's ever going to happen, but
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll talk to Stone Cold on WWE's latest, greatest endeavor is Skyping everybody. You saw them Skype with Booker T this past week, Skyping with Stone Cold. Who are they going to Skype with next week?
Mick Foley.
Mick Foley. Probably going to Skype with Mick Foley.
Yep.
Let's close the show, though, with talking about the new tag team champions, Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins. How long of a partnership do you see this go on? Does it last till Clash of Champions, or does it implode by then?
I think it lasts till Clash Champions. We're not that far away, so I don't think it's going to implode that quickly. I think what's going to happen, I mean, in my hope, is, they keep the tag titles, and then they have a friendly battle for the heavyweight champion, the Universal Championship.
That's what we saw at WrestleMania 23. Remember, Shawn Michaels and John Cena were the tag team champions at the time that they faced off in the main event of WrestleMania 23 in Detroit. So you could see it that way, but at the same time, a lot of times the tag teams end up getting broken up based off, and the championship matches get made off the animosity. And so you want to see a friendly match, but not one where anyone has any animosity towards each other. Or maybe a friendly match first, and then the tag teams get broken up later, and then
I like this
rematch.
I like this, though, for Braun Strowman, especially because Braun hasn't been used properly recently, so I think this is really good for him. I don't mind it for Seth. I don't think it really does too much damage to Seth. So to me, it's more of a gain for Braun over Seth. I mean, Seth's kind of just maintaining. So I'm curious to see how this is going to work. At the end of the day, it's not going to be a long-term thing. I think we all know that. The long-term champion should be, the Revival, somebody like that.
This is just kind of a gimmick, I think, to get them in the ring against each other.
Yeah, I think so. Makes sense.
So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the show. Brandon Icebreaker Clements, you can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21. Myself, Twitter and Instagram at KRockJared. And most importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face. Next week, we will be a week away from NXT making their USA debut, closer to Clash of Champions. AEW's next and final big pay-per-view before they are on television full-time is next Saturday night, so we'll discuss a little bit of that and much more that comes up in the world of professional wrestling. Until then, we will see you next week.